Oh, here we go. Okay, folks, let's get started, please. Welcome all. It's 6:30, I guess, right on the dot. Call the meeting to order. I guess the first item is roll call. Kelly, you want to go through?
Tom?
Here.
Sandy? Here. Christine? Here. Lori? Here. John?
Here.
Larry?
Here.
Dean?
Here.
Deb? Here. Al?
Here. Okay, we have a full house, so alternates won't be voting. I don't think we're going to vote on anything anyways tonight. Second item, it's not in here. Congratulations to Lori.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, if you want to come back, you're always welcome. You find the town board is a little different. Okay. Okay, folks, we just have two action items. One is a lot line adjustment, and the other one is just the initial phase of a minor subdivision. So the first item is Elizabeth. You want to come to the table, please, and just give us a background of what's going on?
Talking to this. It's 95 Goodman Road, is my address. The land extends behind the neighbor's home to the side of me. They were interested in that little parcel that's right directly behind their house, and that's where the lot line will adjust to give them that part of it.
Okay.
Maybe an acre, a little over an acre, I guess, so, and the rest remains mine.
Okay, and yet it's a separate tax parcel. That's still a
Yes.
viable lot.
Yes,
Parcel B, I guess it is.
yes.
Okay. Any questions, board members? Anyone? Anyone at all? John, we're just giving the okay to you to approve that. That's correct?
That's correct, because it is just over an acre.
Okay.
We're under reserves to approve it, since it's .027.
Okay. Okay, so I guess there's no one has a comment, so I guess it's pretty simple. John, please go ahead and approve. Okay, we're set, Elizabeth, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
and second item is Kristen. You want to come to the table? Hi. And you want to give us a background, what's going on?
Sure, yes. So I'm Kristen Gutenberger from Cornell University, representing the Real Estate Department in a subdivision request for the Lansing Orchards on Swayze Road. We have, it's been used for fruit research for 40, 50 years. I'm looking at Christine, because I think she probably knows the date better than I do. But for a very long time, we are scaling back the research on this parcel, and so we would like to subdivide it, retain just over 28 acres, and sell off just over 69 acres.
So you're going to be putting it on the market. You don't have a buyer yet.
We actually do.
Oh, you do?
Yes. We are, yes. And while I know you're well aware that we don't need to disclose this, but the buyers have given me permission to disclose. It's a couple who have a lavender farm in the Hudson Valley, and the wife is from Springport, about half an hour north. And they have some children, and they want them to go to Lansing School District, and they want to move their lavender farm here and keep it as one big parcel and build a single-family home and have a lavender farm.
Okay. Kristen, the one thing I noticed, there's a piece of land between the road and the railroad, and it says that it's currently assessed to Cornell. What's the story on that strip?
That's the northern strip, correct?
I'm sorry?
It's the northern, yes. You know, the assessment office has had that in their records for a long time. Our office has gone through and looked at the legal descriptions, and we don't believe that we own that. And we've talked with Jay Franklin about that, and I think I can follow up with him, because it was a few years ago that we talked about this. But we don't have record of us owning it. I think it's just an error in the tax parcel.
Do you know
tax
who
map
owns
line.
it?
No, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the concern is that once this splits, and if that's still included as a tax parcel, that will become a separate tax, the assessment will make a separate tax parcel out of that. You follow what I mean?
Yes, yeah, but if you look at, if we did this research, I apologize, I wasn't anticipating this question, but we did do the research several years ago, and I'll just have to go back and look, but I can see, but whoever, the legal description in the surveys for the land around there includes that parcel. So there is someone that thinks it, and if I had to guess, I think it's probably the Kleins, Fran Kleins,
Oh,
used to be
okay.
Jim Kleins. I believe they're just south of that. So I think it's in the legal description of the Kleins parcel. But,
Okay.
like I said, it's been several years. I'm gonna say it's probably been 5 years since I've researched that, when we determined that we didn't own it. Because initially, we thought we maybe could sell that off as a buildable lot. So we did a lot of research on that. And like I said, we don't own that, but TG Miller has kept it, because there's this inaccuracy in the tax maps.
So the item that's labeled parcel C, is that currently part of
This is hard to read.
this parcel?
It's part of the sale, however, that's already its own tax parcel, so we don't need to subdivide it.
Okay.
So that's why, so the math doesn't really add up, because that's .32 when you add those together, so we're actually selling off 69 point, oh God, was it 96, I think, acres.
Sorry, where in the map is parcel C? I'm having a hard time
It's all the
locating.
way at
It's-
the bottom, which side?
I'm happy to come show
That's
you.
parcel-
It's a lake parcel.
Got it, it's a smaller, lake.
It's very small, it's not a buildable lot,
Okay, thank you.
but we do have a pump house that is
I
there.
was gonna say you've got
And
utilities
it pumps the
coming up.
water, the irrigation line, and so we're retaining an easement up the slope to keep for the irrigation, for the research fields that we are keeping. But yes, and then the parcel that you're referring to is the one it's just north of that. When we look at our legal description, it only goes to the center of the road, where you can see, it says Bill George. So that's what legally we've owned. So why there's, that reference, we're just not sure.
So is there any part of this parcel that's on the lake?
Not this parcel, no. Yep,
It's
the one
all-
that's on the lake.
It's all on the other side of Bill George Road?
Yeah, it's all on the east side, yes.
Do you know, I guess prior to your sale, I know this is the first step, if there's ever been any study on the soil before sale?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Orchards and obviously DD2 use in the historical sense.
Yep.
I guess they're buying it as is, or is there disclosure?
They
statement
are,
that we review?
no, they're buying it as is. It even says, there's the pesticide barn here, we've used that, we are open about that. So they're aware what the use is, but they have not, yet, and it's not in the contract, they've not asked to do an environmental review.
Any questions, ladies? Christine, Lori? Dean? Anyone else?
Lavender farm sounds good to me.
I know, I've only met the couple once over Zoom, and they said, well, we just really hope our neighbors like purple flowers. I'm like, well, I would hope so, who wouldn't?
Neighbors
So-
won't be able to see for the most part, unless you drive.
Yeah, and I have contacted some of the adjacent neighbors who, over the years, have been concerned about what might happen with this parcel. And so I've informed them, and they all seem to be thrilled with this potential use.
I would think this would be one of the best outcomes they could hope for.
Yes, yeah, and again, it's not, I need to disclose, but it was a competitive sale process, and so there were some other buyers looking to buy this and come in with several parcel subdivision.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, we're all, I think everybody's thrilled with this outcome.
So, John, as far as future, if it does go to the Lavender Farm, that won't come before the planning board at all, probably? Not, as far as any farm development, any residential development, that'll all be a permit process through code enforcement, correct? Okay, okay. So at this point in time, if the board has no other questions, we're going to be making a recommendation for public comment. Is that correct, John?
Set a public hearing for December 18th.
I do have one question now.
Go ahead, Larry.
Do you know if they're going to be doing processing on the site? In other words, will they have a barn where they'll process the flowers? Or they just
I'm not sure.
harvest them and ship them off?
I'm not sure. I know that they do a U-Pick event in like June or July, so I think people can come and pick the flowers and leave, but I'm not sure what their whole process is.
So if there was some sort of processing, does zoning permit that on the site?
It
Yeah.
would be an agricultural
Could be an
use,
agricultural
so,
use. yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So that would include processing facilities.
Okay.
Is that agricultural use?
Mm-hmm. All right, any other questions? So I'm looking for a recommendation to hold a public comment period on this next month. Second, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, I think that's it for tonight.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, any comments on this? I have a public, any comment? Okay, thank you. So I think that's about it, correct, John?
We need, this is the meeting where the board will give its comments on the draft open space conservation plan that was presented to you last month.
Mhm.
So if the board has any comments that they'd like to make on it, I see they have some representatives in the back. If you have questions as well, but this is your chance for comment that will, go back into the plan, go back to the town board.
Okay, so you're looking for comments from the planning board members. If there are no comments or concerns, the next step would be what?
Well, the next step is, like, it's still going to the agricultural committee, and Joe, is there anything anybody else besides that, those folks? Okay, and then it's, then to the town board for,
Okay.
okay? And if there's substantial comments from the planning board and from the ag committee, we also held a public open house, which had pretty good turnout on that. So the consultants are compiling the comments on those, and so that could still result in, some changes to the plan.
Okay,
But if there are changes, then they'll go to the town board.
so we're not, if there are changes, we wouldn't see the
I
changes.
don't think you'd see those changes unless they were, a massive change to the plan. Basically, if it results in a whole new plan, then we might want to buy it again, but.
Would we have the opportunity to review public comments?
That wasn't in our plan, Larry, but I'm sure we can provide those to you.
Probably would be, would that be complicated or difficult for you to do that? Or
As
have
long
you
as it's
assembled it?
compiled, Gary, I don't see an issue I don't think Bergen would have an issue with that, but they're compiling them now, so.
So you're gonna put those together, you wouldn't mind sending them, forwarding those to the planning board members? Okay, great. So I think, you okay with that, board members?
But to keep this project moving on time and on budget, we would like your comments.
Okay, so, just verbally now, any comments from board members on that? Tom,
On this
go ahead.
particular topic, or on
Yes,
the,
on this, the concert, this.
on the plan?
Yes.
Open space and
Yeah,
conservation.
okay, so I'm having a hard time with, what is it, grasslands and meadow versus, hayfields. And how do you distinguish grassland and meadows versus hayfields and pasture?
What, can one of you, or both of you come up to the mic for the people out there, please?
So Gary, I think that was actually one of my comments as well, and how you explained it to me at the time was that the conservation advisory committee recognizes that agricultural uses are something that has to be maintained, like an ongoing thing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is that if it were an agricultural field, it would involve more management, like
like annual mowing, as opposed to something that was just, maybe brush hogged or mowed intermittently, but I'm guessing on that.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Larry.
On the same lines, you need to recognize that an agricultural field can deliberately be left fallow
Mhm.
for rest or whatever. Is there allowance for that? Or is there a deadline on, not being actively used agriculturally before it becomes something that they can't use again?
Yeah, Larry, it's a great question, and I don't think that the plan gets into that level of fine-grained management at all. It's really, it's broader guidelines than that, and so we did not discuss what the implementation of different management practices would be to that degree.
Yeah, because it is a recognized management practice, as you know.
Understood.
And I would hate to see a farmer lose the right to use a field agriculturally just for leaving it alone for a few years.
I don't think that there's a risk of that.
I would say beyond that. So if something is into successional, where you're getting, 3-inch trees growing everywhere, that's one thing. But if you've got what used to be a pasture that has been left for 5 or 10 years and is full of, well, not just thistles, but bushes, right? So you've got honeysuckle,
Honeysuckle and willow.
another year down the road, after all those are removed, it can be back to pasture. And I'm saying this from experience because that's what happened on my
Yeah.
lot. Because I had 4 children, and now that my children are grown, torn all that out, restored it back to pasture. And I think one of the key ingredients is to think about, all the land was agricultural, unless it was a draw, unless it was a gully, unless it was a place that really couldn't be tilled. Everything was agricultural for the most part. Even the steep slopes they probably used for pasture ground. And obviously we're keeping steep slopes out of the equation for agriculture. But I would give a lot of leeway on the ag side for ground to be used for ag and not taken out easily from that application.
Years ago in the old town hall, we used to have pictures of the area around here. And there wasn't tree one.
Right.
It was all ag fields.
Right, and those guidelines, based on that prioritization metric, are really just guidelines, and when parcels do come up for potential consideration for conservation, they would be reconsidered on a case-by-case basis, and one would only need to do a site visit or look at the aerial photos to be able to see that something had changed significantly. So, I think landscapes are fluid, and we understand that.
The other thing that I was unclear of is when a use is limited or changed, is there any compensation for the landowner? Because landowners continue to be taxed on this property.
The plan doesn't get into that.
I'm sorry?
The plan does not get into that at all. Yeah.
That's another consideration.
So the plan isn't specifically determining any uses for any of the properties that have been identified. It's not suggesting that they change, it's not suggesting that they stay the same. It's completely silent on the use, it's just sort of evaluating that for sort of the value, the conservation value in the future in case anything comes up. So the plan doesn't say that it should be changed from, agricultural use to conservation use, or that nothing can happen on it. It doesn't make any kind of recommendations like that, Larry. So
Well, we need to make sure that that sort of thing is clear, because things have a way of happening. Once it's written down, and say, well, our original intent was this is gonna happen, or that is gonna happen. But if it doesn't say that specifically, then, like I said, things have a way of happening.
do you feel that the plan doesn't do a good job of sort of staying neutral?
Most of it does, but there are a few points where there needs to be a little more definition. And most of them have to do with property owners' rights. They're left a little mushy. There's not really a whole lot of clarity there.
It's
And
quite,
to me,
it's
because I
quite,
always look at things the worst possible case.
yeah, and it's quite, it's quite similar, I think, and you've been in the game with the UNAs for a very, very long
Oh, yeah.
time, and you know the concern that there was that it might be perceived as a regulatory document, which we agree that it is not.
Mhm.
This is even less so of a regulatory document.
Well, that's good, but I'm the guy that stands in the corner and throws out dire warnings.
I appreciate
In hopes that
it.
they never come true.
But on that point, I think, John, you made comments in your comments about the use of the plan and that it should be, and maybe I'm misquoting you, but it should be used as part of sort of community planning and how to manage conservation alongside development. And summarizing a little bit of what John actually did say. But I do think it's it's not quite neutral enough there, where it's talking about what it's going to be used for, its purpose. And maybe I'm misquoting how you plan to use it, but I think it's missing that sort of key definition of how you're expecting it to be used. Some of my comments, there's an article in there that talks about property values and the increase or higher sale value and tax collection. That's good and bad. So that's good for a community. We want good property values, we want them to be lowered, but raising them can also eliminate low and mid-income buyers from the market if it gets too high. So, especially if you're talking about limiting development, which I don't think is necessarily what you're after, but if it gets to a point where it's being used to limit and argue against development, then you have a problem with a diverse community and equity across the community.
Absolutely, I agree.
So I just wanted to point that out, that I think that use could use some clearer definition.
Do you have any comments on that? Karen?
I guess only if you could point,
It's very well spoken.
Yeah.
I think it's the missions, she's probably talking about the mission statement.
is that in the mission statement?
Yeah, in the introduction, there's a planned purpose. There's also a section about property value. I think what your point about that is it's not lowering the conservation efforts, don't lower property value, which I think is a very valuable thing to say. But I think you want to be careful when you say that it increases them or makes them higher, because that potentially has the opportunity to limit development. And actually, the article, I went in and looked at the article that you used by Ellen Irving, and her article in the abstract says, results show a premium associated with permanently preserved open space relative to developable agriculture and forested land, and support the hypothesis that open space is most valued for providing an absence of development rather than for providing a particular bundle of open space land. And then I think that you want to be careful that it's not an absence of development that you're trying to focus on.
Yeah, I think more appropriately, it's targeted areas of development and not the absence
Absolutely.
thereof.
And because the report is so generalized, I think it leaves it a little too open.
Keith's a certified appraiser. Keith, what do you think about some of the comments on valuation? Did you have a chance to read it?
I didn't get to that part, but I think Larry makes a good point on this thing. When you convert your property to organic, it takes 39 months to do it. And what some person may interpret as like scrubby, crappy fields, it's going through a process to go to the next use. So that, you have to be careful. I haven't read
is part of your vision in the effort to protect crucial environmental resources that will enhance the town's resiliency and sustainability for years to come. I'm not sure that the two connect in the way you're intending.
And I think if anybody were to get the idea that the purpose of the plan is anti-development, that would be kind of the wrong thing to do in a town where we're losing tax base almost on a daily basis. Yet, we need the money to keep the programs that the town is supporting and suggesting and increasing. To keep these programs going, we need the tax money coming in. We've got to have some maintenance of tax bases other than being paid by other than homeowners and farmers. So we do need some kind of development, but it needs to be the right kind of development.
And that's always the key, is the balance there. How much is making that balance that's fair for everyone? That's always the question.
Yeah, I read the report. It's very neutral in terms of development, for sure. I thought the conclusion and recommendations at the end were fine. It's to be taken as a guide, so the comments are minimal because I took it and read it for what was being written. I'm not reading into it or thinking doom and gloom.
Well, yeah,
You know. Yeah.
One of my big concerns right now is Cargill has announced that they're divesting their salt production over the whole nation. Because Cargill isn't about salt, Cargill is about agricultural products. And when they look at a portion of their holdings that are not producing like they should, that's why they're getting rid of their salt production. And that means here, it means in Seneca County, in Yates County, a lot of these rural townships and counties are going to take a hit if they can't find buyers for their plants. That includes the wells over in Watkins.
Tom, anything else you want to comment on? We're going through.
Well, I don't know what Cargill's plans are, but I think they're making money there, and I'm assuming they're going to continue operating even if it's on the market.
Well, yeah, they are going to continue to operate until they sell it, but what their plan is to divest all of their salt products.
Right, but, you know, I'm not sure who's going to buy that.
Well, true.
Cargill isn't part of tonight's discussion.
No,
No,
no.
I was,
As a possible erosion to our tax base, it is. But it's just one of the specters that loom in the distance behind us that we have to take into account when we're considering something like this. I don't have any problem with the plan, but I think that some of your wording just needs to be fine-tuned to ease some of these potential difficulties.
so it would be great if you could flag those parts, and I think, John, you were collecting the comments. It would be helpful to know those places where you felt it was a little bit mushy or
Okay. So
needing
If
tweaking.
you get a chance to make
Okay,
comments, get it to
I'll
John.
make that one of my choice tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll have to go over that again.
I actually have my notes in the form.
Thank
I
you.
can send them out, actually, I'll send them out.
It sounds like we're all seeing the same things. Christine says it far better than I did. And,
I agree.
um,
Dean, you have a comment?
Well, a couple comments. One, the Conservation Advisory Council, I think that one of the things that we look pretty hard for in terms of our purpose here as a planning board is separation between zones, and looking to the Conservation Advisory Council to help us to a certain degree with how to do that. Because we want to protect residential, for instance, from industrial or from commercial type zones. And so we talked about what kind of plantings should we be having. And we talked in the report, I think it mentioned something about screening and berms around things like solar farms, or whatever you want to call them. And we had a great proposal, I mean, even from a solar company, but we're still kind of flopping like a fish when it comes to determining what are best practices for plantings, size-wise, spacing, all that kind of stuff. And that's one of the things I think that is very practical, on a practical level, that we're looking for input from Conservation Advisory Council for. One of the things in the report is just talking about different ways to achieve ends and what the costs are. And so there were things like fees, or incentives, grants, different ways to get money, to potentially fund different programs. And I think that the emphasis should definitely be on trying to provide some kind of incentives rather than fees or taxes. Fees for use of facilities, perhaps. I'm assuming that we do that at Myers Point right now, that there are some fees to be paid there if you're camping there, or reserving a pavilion, or launching a boat, or what have you. But, a lot of the conservation parcels that are out there, it seems like they're going to be pretty much kind of open to the public, right? There'll be trails. Well, you look at a place like Salt Point, there's no fee to get into Salt Point. What is the new conservation parcels up on Route 34? I think that they're going to be, they're not owned by the municipality, but they're owned by a land trust. And my understanding is they'll be putting in parking paths there, and there won't be any fees to access that ground. You have to walk the path.
But
think-
there may be, there may be public preserves that come out of this, but it's just as likely that there could be conservation easements which would still be privately held.
Right, well, conservation easements, I think, are different than mortgage fees of 1% to 2% when you buy your house. Which, of course, anything that you do in terms of development fees or mortgage fees potentially takes a bite of potential housing that will be developed in our town or businesses. So you can potentially stifle that at the builder's level or developer's level. And then, again, when those turn over and sell, if somebody takes out a mortgage, then they have to pay. Well, it's already hard enough to buy a house. But I'm certainly more in favor of incentives than in taxes and fees.
I know it's also including the comment about that, because like when I send them out, in comment, more on things as well. It just, so things like transfer tax and regulation fees, I think again, has the potential to prevent development, but it also has the potential to prevent lower average income folks from doing things that they might do in a public recreation setting, for their health and mental health, if they can't afford to go. So just, I mean, that was a comment that I made, it's,
So that matrix also talked about timelines and also talked about impact on the planning department. And so, John in his notes mentioned some things, but I think that particular matrix certainly needs to be gone over directly with the planning department to make sure that there's conclusions in terms of the types of impacts or how long things take. Joe can tell you how long things take. How long for the solar law? Things take a while, so you can't just make assumptions that this can happen in a year, or it can happen in 2 years.
I think
And like Larry said, things take time.
the thinking behind the if I'm perceiving that you're talking about the implementation chart at the end of the document, I think the thinking behind that was to provide an array of possibilities for the town to consider between now and decades from now, but to not prescribe. So to lay out possibilities about what other communities have done, but not have it prescriptive to Lansing. That was the intent. If that's not clear enough, then we probably need to clarify that.
And I think another thing just to add to that, Dean, is, and it's a conversation that we have frequently at the CAC, is how much are our goals in line with what our capacity and what the capacity of the planning department is to implement those. And I think that we are extremely conscious of not getting in over our heads, you know, not being the first thing that we decide we want to do is implement a municipal conservation easement program, because it's just not something that we have the people power to do right now. So I think we're constantly, you know, sort of self-monitoring on what we could take on. And part of that was the reasoning behind hiring Bergman too, because writing the entire plan and doing the inventory was just not within the capacity of the CAC, but it was very essential to get moving along. So I would just say I think we're being quite conservative on that level.
Well, yeah, I think you need to make sure that you're touching base directly with the planning department as you're looking at some of those metrics there.
Yeah, so John was able to see an earlier draft, and he focused his comments on that implementation chart. He looked at the other portions, but then really drilled down. And then the CAC met and had an entire meeting with Bergman Colliers to address each one of his concerns. And then, you know, we then had a conversation, pretty lengthy conversation about each one of those. So the draft that you got had already, I won't say it had been approved by John, but it was not a surprise to him because what was in there he was really aware of. And I think we addressed an awful lot. There may still be a few lingering parts.
So two other comments. One is the presentation is really very nice. So if we're paying somebody to help put this together, it's really nice. It's nicely done, beautiful photos, nice maps. Of course, we want to not only see it online, but we want to see all the maps kind of, that you can open them separately and really zoom in, that we can get the parcel level, so that they become very valuable. And I think that any of them, it's nice to see that later, right? It's nice to be able to zoom in on any of those maps and be able to see where your parcel is, where your neighbor's parcels are. So to be able to overlay with those parcels, I think is pretty important.
John, do you want to talk, you had a conversation at the open house with John Steinmetz and Katie Darcy about that, and I think they said that they were even willing to explain the tool to you so that you had the tool for future use.
They go that far into it, although I'm sure that they would. It's more willing to provide us with whatever we want, but that data is ours, so we will, we will have all that GIS data, so we can use it to do that. Now, the town doesn't currently have any kind of like online map, but that's certainly something that's, but on my radar, and we can talk about with the town board, for the public to review, not just this type of thing, but zoning information, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what really helps you visualize information.
Right.
So,
Right, yeah,
now,
that's important.
they did put together a very nice, sort of precursor
The story map.
story.
Yeah.
Although
Have
that's
you
not
looked at
so much of the parcel level,
But we may be able to ask them to put the parcel boundaries into it, you know, with information, you know, valuation
It's
information.
just, it's nice if you can pull up a map and you can click to put the parcel boundaries on, pick it off.
Yeah, we can ask them to put that in.
I can do that in the office.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I For being, sure, that's a great feature. We make a link to a PDF or something, at the very minimum.
Yeah, but those story maps, as you probably have seen, they're zoomable, and so you can take it down to a quite fine-grained level. And so, it's probably worth asking Katie and John whether they just throw that parcel information in.
We should probably think long-term, or we can continue to keep that capability or develop that capability, then slightly larger conversation with how people are visualizing town plans and planning in general, right? Once this is adopted, programs moved on, they're not going to be posted in the story map forever. So is this information just sit in PDF along with list of documents on the town's website, or is it better?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you more about that, because I think I understand the mapping technology pretty well.
So, yeah, the last thing that I had was just kind of in line with some of John's comments in terms of the matrix for, importance to reserve an area for, how many points does it get in order to be more desirable to hold off on development and be a better choice for conservation as open space. And as I looked at the map and I see one of the large parcels down off of, West Dryden Road, Farrell Road, to the south of that. I mean, that's an area where we've got a planning of development, and we're, it's in a zoned area where we would really look at wanting more density, potentially not reserve land to, be open conservation space unless it was probably included in some kind of a, development plan. That was really the only parcel that kind of stuck out to me, because it was so far south, and it was red in color.
Yeah, so I think that that really does get directly at the purpose of the plan, is that we can, in developing this plan and this index, it's something to flag to the planning board that there are conservation values associated with it, and that may inform how you might advise for how that parcel would be developed. So maybe there would be, a clustered neighborhood within, an open area. It's not meant to be prescriptive, it's meant to be informational, same way as the unique natural area, because as we found out with the unique natural area inventory, which Larry and I both worked on for years, a lot of the times landowners aren't even aware of the ecological and conservation values of the land that they own. And it turned out to be, by and large, it was considered a huge gift of good information, not something that was rejected or resented. So, I see it as really a win-win, by and large. So it's just new. I think it's new information to fold into the mix as areas are being considered for development.
Well, one other quick thing is the scenic map has a bunch of dots on it.
Mhm.
It would be really nice if there were actual photos from those scenic areas that, you could click on them on the map.
Yeah, we have that as a
That's all in the scenic
PDF, but not
resources
interactive.
inventory.
Anything?
Well,
Go ahead.
I viewed it like, I was on the comprehensive plan, so I viewed it in that light. It's a guide for us to use. But I did, being on the comprehensive plan, when we were almost done with it, lots of people came and said, I didn't even know about this. And I know we did our due diligence and more to get the word out, and I know you have too. I just wish there was a way to get the residents more involved in this type of thing, and I don't have any grand ideas on how to do that, but I do know, just being on the comp plan, how, that was kind of frustrating to me, but I didn't know how much more we could have done to
make residents aware of what is happening in the town. And I feel like this might be on the same trajectory of, not everyone, or not, I think a lot of people don't even know this is happening. I mean, I've talked to my, friends and colleagues, they have no clue that this is happening. So, like I said, I don't have any frame ideas on how to.
Yeah, we did get it. I mean, I don't remember what the numbers were, but we got a lot of feedback over the course of the plan from the
different
public.
people, or just?
From the survey, that was held a year ago, and we kept the period open for a couple of months. We got 460 responses to the survey, getting people's opinions about open space and having them suggest places in Lansing that they think are worthy, like the ones that you mentioned, Dean, with the dots. So,
that's, what's the population? What's that, between 10? About 10. So, 0.5%.
Yeah, and, you know, this is what happens when we don't have a local newspaper, we don't have the same common gathering places that some communities have, and we had COVID going on, so, yeah, I think it's a challenge.
The Lansing Star, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's more than that.
You need a mailing to every single
Yeah.
person in the town.
Exactly.
You know, it's, I think that the CDC has done its due diligence in trying to inform the public. But at some point in time, the town has to move forward with plans. You can't just keep waiting for the public.
I understand, but I just am expecting to fall out.
hopefully that will
It's
just
more than a
encourage-
0.5% also, because it's households.
Oh, 465,000, as
Yeah.
opposed to individuals.
Yeah, and we can only hope that if there's, you know, a positive outcome of that, it will encourage more civic participation the next time around. That's hopefully the silver lining that I can wish for.
Christine, do you have anything else that you want to emphasize?
No, I'll just send my notes with a couple of, like, completely decided, just some very minor stuff that might be helpful to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I do have to say, I spent a lot of time with my report, and wow, it's a lot of work. There's issues and the amount of, work that went into even just being able to sort of quantify how to, you know, create, conservation priorities and how to map and mapping them. I mean, that was amazing to me, in my mind, that you accomplished. So I hope, despite all of the comments that I've made, that you can pat yourself on that way.
Keith, do you have any comments? Anything else? No? Okay. Anyone else on the board? Anything else?
Yeah, I was surprised it was only 56 pages. I got to the end, I was like, wow, it's all in there.
Carrie, when is Bergman hoping to be able to incorporate, you know, comments and revise it necessary?
We're going to meet with them again. We have our CAC meeting on December 7th, and so we'll get a good idea. They're aiming for having some of this wrapped up by January.
By January?
So-
Yeah, so I think for, just to keep things moving, if this board, you know, if you want to send me your comments, I'm more than willing to pass them through.
Okay.
But, we should probably,
When do you want them by, John?
yeah, I'm just thinking, if they want to wrap up a plan by January, and the town board is meeting on the 20th, do you folks think another 2 weeks would be enough time?
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh, yeah.
more than enough, I think. If you,
What I said, December 8th would be the cutoff date, okay?
If you chose December 7th, then we could talk about them at our meeting.
Okay.
Just
Yeah,
saying.
Sure, yeah, I mean.
all right, so if the
We need
board,
that
anyone
night.
has additional comments, please put them in writing to John, correct? And that's done by the 7th, please.
Yeah, and please put that in the subject of some conservation.
Okay,
Okay.
yep, good idea.
What time do you meet on the 7th?
6:30.
So, probably new.
Yeah, it would be good.
That doesn't mean that if you give them the comments at 8:15.
Thank you, thank you,
That's what I'm saying.
thank you. All right, anything else, folks, tonight? Yeah,
I
Deb?
just wanted to report, I have been going to the, what the heck, Trails and blah, blah, blah committee, as an
Oh,
observer.
yes, uh-huh.
And I got very frustrated, and so I stopped going. There are people who mean extremely well, but they've all taken the Kool-Aid. And I thought they were overly enthusiastic without recognizing that people have difficulties with trails being put in some areas where we haven't had them.
So you're saying they were asking for too much? Is that what you're saying?
They were not realizing that people could object to trails. And I've heard these arguments over about 15 years. Oh, of course trails are good, they're going to improve it. Oh, well, no, you can't have any complaints because blah, blah, blah. So I think they were trying to do a good job on the planning, but it frustrated me. And I'm too old to have that much frustration. I had to go home and knit.
That's not a new problem. Back when.
My frustration?
No, the failure to recognize that people might not want a trail in their backyard.
Yeah.
And this started, that kind of interface with the Trails Committee for the planning board started way back when that little kid was killed down in Avoca when he was walking one of these types of trails from nursery school home.
Yeah.
And he was murdered by an 8-year-old. But the people that were on the Trails Committee at the time couldn't realize the town could carry some liability for that sort of thing. In that respect, trails are kind of a creative nuisance, or, an attractive nuisance.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing can happen, and a town can be held liable if they have approved or encouraged the development of these trails. And all we got was a lot of response, well, in Rochester this doesn't happen, or over here this doesn't happen, and everybody recognizes that this is a good thing. Ithaca has a lot of trails, a ton of trails, and they have been handling it well for years, but I don't know how they do the liability thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard of any complaints regarding trails aside from just maintenance of the highway department,
Well, I know in real estate,
public safety.
one of the problems with, on Salt Hill where the trails go through there, people would come in to buy a house and they say, what's that thing in the backyard? I said, well, that's, the realtors don't tell them this sort of thing is going on. They finally said, well, the realtors finally told them that's a public trail. I don't want people walking through my
Yeah,
backyard.
I've definitely heard the flip side where people want to have access to the trails. They're very excited about it. I would just say
there's that too.
Yeah, they're very excited to have access
That outweighs
to it.
most of the neighborhoods, but, I just happen to be in position to hear one of my clients tell a realtor that they didn't want the property because they didn't want people looking in their back windows. So there are two sides. And like you said, but there seems to be reluctance to realize that people might have an opinion that.
Yeah. It's a delicate negotiation.
Yeah, it is.
So is it Pat that's in control of that committee? Does he attend the meetings?
Oh, it's like many committees. It's hard to know who's in control. There's some
But-
people who talk a lot,
Yeah.
not Pat.
But Pat does participate in the meetings?
He's there,
He's there.
yes.
And does John participate?
No,
No?
I've never seen John there, but then I stopped going.
God willing, you won't.
And,
What?
God willing, you won't.
and do you have a town board member participate in this? Any town board member?
Yes. Ruth Rowe, yes.
Okay.
But, well, at least when I was coming, she was more sporadic in attendance.
Okay.
So Pat is the town staff member who's assigned to that because he's Parks and Recreation. So he's-
Right. I just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
The town has a parks plan and is, I think the next step is working on trails.
Okay, any comments related to the trails? Christine, did you have an ag? Has there been any ag meetings?
No.
No?
I think our next one is, next week, due, given the conservation plan.
Okay.
And meeting on
Okay. And I guess, Joe, do you have anything for us?
You thought we'd never ask.
Okay, so town passed the budget at our last meeting. You can look at it online if you want. We're setting up the drainage districts for East Shore Circle and Asbury Collins subdivisions, long and coming to get those straightened out. And the final thing is we have decided to put off appointments to planning board and such until the next town board. So those will happen in January or February.
Have you been getting, you been advertising, have you been getting
I don't know how much has come in yet.
stuff coming in? Simple.
Do you have a
So we should be
procedure?
talking to people.
I've been talking to people. I haven't been getting a lot of people coming forward. But yeah,
So,
we've got a couple of vacancies on this board that I'm aware of. And
so Phil, for this year, do you want a recommendation from the planning board members on the applicants that you do receive before you make the decision?
we're going to wait till next year and let that town board decide is basically what the decision of this town board was. The
Right.
town board didn't want to set up something and hand it to the other
Okay,
town board.
so you're gonna wait until next year, and then you'll make a decision on how you want to make those
Mhm.
appointments, and whether you want feedback from the planning board members.
Well, there'll be
on-
some feedback from the planning board,
Okay.
however, but yeah, the exact procedure will be decided by the next town board.
Okay.
So question, my term at the end of December, you're moving on to town board in January, that would leave you without alternate.
No, because what happens is you'll stay on until we appoint somebody new. Obviously, Lori's going to drop off because she can't hold both positions, but you will stay on until we either reappoint you or somebody in your place.
So after the first of the year, Deb does not want to re-up, so to speak, so that you wouldn't be attending, is that correct, Deb? Or would you wait until the new appointments?
Oh, it depends on how my stomach feels. I would rather not attend.
It's up to all of you. I mean, any of you can resign at any point and say, I don't want to be on this board anymore. And Deb's certainly welcome to resign in January.
So does she need to do anything officially to resign, since you haven't decided, you know?
If she doesn't resign and doesn't show up, it's
okay,
fine.
Okay.
But if she resigns, then that seat's formally vacant as opposed to you could come back the next month.
That
Okay.
changes the quorum.
Yeah, but
Quorums are-
we can still
the-
appoint
quorum's the same.
Christine will be here, and we can still appoint
I'm sorry.
Christine.
Yes.
What were you
Right?
saying?
Quorum stays the same. Quorum's the number of seats on the board, not the number of people seated.
People in.
Let's say that it could be a 5-person board with 2 alternates as well. I think that's more common for most towns, right?
Yeah, but the
7's quite large.
7 is within the town law for this board.
We would have to change the
Just
law.
say, it's a pretty big number.
We would have to change the law.
Well, it's worked well for us, though.
I think-
We get a
I
lot
think
of
it's-
different opinions that way.
Yeah, I mean, I've
You
been
know,
here
since you're taking one of our alternates, who, by the way, would have made an excellent member on permanent member on the board, we're getting the ragged end of this deal, but basically, we have currently 2 alternates that have been very faithful in attending the
Mhm.
meetings, and that was the whole purpose of having the alternates attend the meetings. It didn't used to be that way. And either one of these folks could step in anywhere on this board and take up a full voting membership with full knowledge of all the items we're discussing.
Mhm.
So, all I'm saying in the future is conserve your resources.
Larry, that's what I was hinting at, is that we can make this a 9-member board, the 2 I know from the city of Ithaca, they disbanded their whole Board of Public Works because they couldn't get volunteers in, and I've heard they're planning, obviously, we're not Ithaca, but I'm just saying, it's hard, the last people up here saying civic engagement is hard to do. That was the reason for bringing up, it'd be easier to pass things with a lower quorum, if it was official saying a 5-member board
Well,
versus.
for me, it's been
having
a
it
pleasure
seven. Yeah.
to serve on this board because I've found that over the years, and there have been a few years, you can plan on coming to the meetings, and there won't be that many absences, only when people are dying or taking vacation. And we didn't used to have fully trained alternates. The alternates would come to a meeting when somebody called them ahead of time and said, hey, so-and-so isn't coming, can you show up? This system works.
We've never
Works
had,
very well.
we've never had to delay any kind of decisions
That's
because we
right.
didn't have a quorum.
You've come close to a quorum a couple of times, but you've always had a quorum.
Yes.
I mean, since I've been on the board, it's been fine. Yeah, it's been a great board. I've been here, what, about 15 years in my time, and Larry's a senior above me, and the last 15 years, I think it's worked very well. Everybody's been
Extremely.
very good on the board, cooperative, and
Oh, we've had differences of opinion, but that's why there's more than one person on the board.
Mhm.
Okay, Joe, do you have anything else for us?
That's all I have specifically. If you had any questions, I'd happy to answer them.
All right, board members, anything else?
Move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Yeah, what about,
Move to adjourn.
what about the training?
Oh, yeah, what about the training?
The communication and difficult meetings training, I tried as I might, I was really trying to get something going for October, I tried to get something happening in November. December, I don't think I can get anything rolling for you, so I'm going to follow my sword with the town board, say that I couldn't get it going, it's not going to be a reflection of this board at all, but I'd like to immediately, first thing in the new year, get your, all of your training done. I'll actually probably talk to Mary Ellen about your permit training as well. I think it would be
Yeah, I
better
emailed
policy to
firm,
do that in like January, February, get all your required stuff out of the way. So,
and it'd be nice if
I don't
we
know
could
where
just
I don't know where we are with permit.
Yeah.
That's not.
Well, I just emailed them,
Harassment training and stuff like that.
I just emailed them, John, and they said specifically, what are you looking for? And I told them those two things, dealing with difficult people and sexual harassment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it would be ideal if we could at least have that as an alternate, if nothing else, that you could just hop online and take it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Really did that.
I was hoping to get Mark Schaffner to do your training last year, that's who I was trying to.
I mean, live training is always better, but
So to that point, I think we probably will schedule 2 sessions when I can get it happening, but, does anybody here have daytime availability? If there's an online thing, you don't necessarily have to come here. John, I understand, and I know that you don't, but does anybody have daytime availability?
I can usually work it in my schedule if I know in advance.
Because like if I do one, you know what I mean, try to get one daytime session and maybe one evening.
So you're saying the session would be on the internet, or it would be here?
On the internet.
Oh, it would be, it's just like a Zoom meeting?
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
live session.
Yeah, live.
Oh,
but
okay.
something like that. And I think it might work well to get one during the day and then one during the evening.
That sounds good.
So,
So
For that
flip-flops
part,
and gym
most
shorts
of the-
are okay as long as they stay below the camera.
You don't want to know.
Okay, anything else, folks? Is everyone gonna be here next meeting? You got a holiday?
Which is,
Is it 18?
18th?
Yeah,
It's a Monday.
that's fine.
looks like,
And will we be voting on that split
Cornell?
at the lake at Cornell?
you'd be able to vote, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, once they have the public hearing. We'll go through seeker.
Oh, yeah.
Technically speaking, this was an exact subdivision. I just felt that it was large and very high profile, and that it shouldn't just be the decision of one person in the department.
oh, Lord knows if anybody heard about it, if it didn't go to the planning board, you'd have heard about it.
Sure.
It is Lansing after all.
Right.
Okay,
I
well,
will be speaking myself at the public hearing from when I worked for Cornell Lansing.
oh,
That's a direct conflict.
You think
of
that's a
interest.
conflict?
We've never held that against you before.
Yeah, so just recuse yourself and state that it's. Yep.
okay, folks, so one more question is, do you wanna go home?
Yes,
First, second? All right.
unless I get a better offer.